Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I have a delightful guest with me today. She is someone I now consider a really good friend, although I just met her about a week or so ago. Her name is Daniela Stockfleth-Menis. She is the host of the very popular podcast called Because Everyone Has a Story. It is a show where ordinary people share stories of courage, transformation, love, overcoming obstacles, and more, which is why she is such a perfect fit for the FemiNinja Project. Daniela, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's an honor to be here. And yes, it's true. I consider you a friend already. I'm reading your book, Forever Fit and Flexible. And also, I think we know each other for more than a week. I think it's like a month now.
Oh my goodness, really? It's so crazy how time flies. Isn't that nuts? Yeah, you're right. Well, so I want you to share your story. So this is another reason why I wanted to have you on the show, because number one, you are charming and delightful, and I had such a lovely connection with you. And it's also because you have such a fascinating story to tell yourself. So we're turning the mic over to you so you can tell your story. You've had such an interesting life. You are so multicultural. You have lived in several different countries, and you were telling me your history when we first met, and I was even having a hard time keeping track of it. And you got married, raised two boys, and I just want you to share your story with us because I personally think it's fascinating, and I know my audience will too.
Well, thank you for thinking so. I was born in Spain. My father was German. My mom was half Venezuelan, half from the north of Spain. And so when I was 8 months, we moved to Venezuela, to Caracas. And then I was there and we went back to Madrid. And then we went back to Venezuela and I went to a German school. When I was 20, my father passed away. So I decided that I went to a German school and I spoke German, and Spanish, but I didn't speak English. So I was studying 2 years of law in the university there, but I failed one course. And oh my God, are you going to edit this?
Yes, I will. Don't worry about it.
When you don't pass one course, you have to repeat the whole year. And so my father passed away and I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I didn't know because ADHD wasn't popular then in the 90s, but I think I had some of that. So it was very difficult for me to learn all these laws and all these things. I enjoyed many classes, but I thought it wasn't for me. So my aunt quickly got me a job in hotels because, I couldn't be doing nothing. And I love working at the Intercontinental in Caracas. It was amazing. And then from there, I went to, so they said, well, but you don't speak English. We hire you because you speak German, but you don't speak English. So I said, okay, I'm going to Miami and learn English there, which I didn't know there were so many Spanish people there. So it wasn't that easy, but I could always pretend that I was German and they kind of believe me. When they tried to speak to me in Spanish, I would say, oh, no Spanish, German. And so then I will be able to practice Spanish. And so then after that, I was going to stay in Florida, but I didn't really like it so much. So I thought, okay, my mom was in Montreal and I thought, okay, I'm going to go there. And I went there for 6 months. And then I decided to go to hotel school in Switzerland. And that's where I met. Yeah, that's where I met my husband now. And it was a fantastic time. We learned a lot about hotels, but for me, it was mainly learning about people and culture. Because, when I went to Florida, I learned about all these Latin cultures that I didn't know because I only knew about Venezuela. And then when I went to Switzerland, I learned about all these other cultures in the world that I didn't know either, because there were people from Thailand, Taiwan, people from South Africa, from Turkey, from everywhere. And it was amazing because, you got to meet so many people from different cultures that you wouldn't in one place, that you wouldn't have that opportunity. So yeah, so that was for me, those two places were really big lessons and learnings. And then after we stay in London in hotels, working there, and it was super fun. I enjoyed London because, we were young,
Mm,
going parties and clubbing, and after work it was always a camaraderie working in hotels, and
mhm,
everybody was from everywhere. So if you have an accent, it didn't matter. Everybody, in Europe, everybody speak English,
mhm,
whatever, it's okay. And then my mom was in Canada, so I got the papers from her, and she's like, well, you have to come. And I was like, I don't know, I don't want to leave London. But Dave, my husband, my boyfriend at the time, he was like, well, I think it will be a good move. And so we did it. We had a postcard. My stepfather sent me a postcard with a Vancouver picture, and I thought, oh, that looks pretty. So
mhm.
we decided to come here, and I came here first, and we got a job. I got a job in a hotel, and I got a job in a supermarket too, because I have to learn the Canadian experience, which I
Mm,
didn't know what that was, but
mhm.
I learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
So especially, it's not a Canadian experience. Also, I think the BC, British Columbia experience, or the style, is that things are very chill. Don't
Mm.
worry, take it easy. And coming from London, it was like fast paced. Come on, do it. Let's do it now, quickly. And so it was difficult. It was very difficult. I didn't understand that at all. I didn't even think that was a possibility, that people would be chill and relaxed. And so here we've been raising our family for 26 years now. Two boys, two they're 22 and 19. They're amazing kids, and also they have been our teachers. And I thought that when you have a kid, you just have a kid. And so I didn't know that when you actually have a kid, they have a lot to bring to you, and you have a lot to learn. And so that was an amazing experience as well. And I didn't really think I would like to be a mom, because I wasn't really into it. It wasn't in my plans, but I enjoy it very much. It's really fun. And it's I love teams. So I think
Mhm.
that this is a team, we all contribute. Everybody has an opinion. We disagree, we agree. So it is fun.
Mhm.
So, and here we are.
Wow. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, going from this fast-paced lifestyle in London, where, the nightlife and everything was happening, boom, boom, boom. And then here you are in Vancouver, and the British Columbia um, mode is more laid back and chill. Were you bored?
Uh, yes, it was. We were shocked to come here, and I started to call this a big town more than a city. And obviously we were still young, and it was very different. The going out scene in England, everybody would talk to you. In England, in Europe, because we were in Switzerland as well, and everybody would talk to you no matter
Mhm,
what. And
mhm,
here that wouldn't happen. And this is something that we always shocked. We still don't get it. uh, People are more into their groups, and
mm,
so that was difficult. And more, well, I got two jobs, and it took us a while to appreciate the beauty of the nature of Vancouver, because Vancouver is, beaches, mountains. It's been healthy. People are here, very concerned about their health and their life balance. So
mhm.
it took us a while, but yeah. So I guess we're used to it. I don't know if I can go back to London and try to work there. They're probably gonna say, "Come on, fast paced."
Yeah, right. I don't think I could keep up with that kind of a pace. How long have you lived now in Vancouver?
26 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is
So
the longest I have been anywhere
that is a
in my
lot of
life.
time. Yeah. Well, yeah, because you were just globetrotting. You were everywhere.
Yes.
So Vancouver, I mean, I've been there only once, but and the way you describe it, to me, it's very similar in some ways to Denver, where I live in
Mhm,
Colorado,
mhm,
with the mountains and the nature and the emphasis on health and wellness. And, I came from a small steel town in Western Pennsylvania, which that really wasn't the focus. I mean, it was a beautiful area to grow up, but coming out here, the emphasis on health and physical activity and stuff, because of course our weather most of the time is usually wonderful, and the mountains are right there. So there's a lot of hiking and biking, and we have paths and trails even in our neighborhoods that we could just roll out our front door, and then we're in a park. So what was that experience like? Because I know also been to London, and that is, it's a complete difference. So how did it change your focus or your value about physical activity, health and wellness? Because you are very interested in that.
Well, the truth is that I was always like this. I remember going, and I realized this a few months ago, that when I was in Venezuela, in Caracas, I was, I think, the only person in my family and my friends that I would go to classes. And, I used to wear the Superman suits, with the underwear on top and stuff. And I used to do exercise a lot, and I used to like it. And then, of course, you move to different countries. I always search for things to do. And it was, I think I remember looking in London but it was, it's a big city. And so I found some things, and I did some exercises also in community centers. So, and then, so when we come here, every time you move, right, you have to settle, you don't think about that. And my husband was the one who started, let's do exercise. And then we were doing exercise in the house. And then we were doing, then we decided to go to the gym, or we take these classes or those classes. But it wasn't really serious until maybe 2009, where we said, okay, let's do something. And then we started with, I did yoga, the Bikram yoga. And so I did it for 10 months, 6 days a week. And so I thought, I'm going to be flexible, because I'm not very flexible, but I just hurt myself somehow. And then went to a physiotherapist, and they said, don't go to yoga anymore. And I'm like, what? And that I don't like it when people say things. I was brainwashed to do it. And then somebody says, don't do it anymore. And so you are like, okay, then I don't go anymore. And then I didn't go, and I stopped doing it. So that I had to change to something else. So I've been always trying. I always like to do things. I have a friend who finally, she was always in the gym, and she always was in the weight area. And so I was in the classes, and then she was kind of like, come over here, cross this way. And I would be like, no, what would I do on the weights? And then she was like convincing me, and she's like, but you have really nice arms. And I'm like, oh, complimenting on my arms. And then she, her name is Janine. And then she said it, come. And then her and her husband, very particular. They love doing exercise, and they're really into like form and caring. As I said, we will teach you. And so then they're the ones who, convert me into the weight room. And so we've been doing weights and lifting and stuff. And, I feel better that way. I think it's better than the classes. I always thought that when I do the classes, I feel like, why am I following this teacher? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think that I always was a person that used to do exercise. So of course it helps that you're here, because then, you get, contagious by other people that also like to do it. We don't, all our friends, nor all our friends are into exercise, I have to say. But, my husband also started to run in 2011, and then he's a runner now, and he loves it. I wouldn't go that far. To me, I still don't think there is a reason for running unless there's a reason for running. So
unless someone's chasing you, maybe.
Yes, I don't run otherwise. So
well, I have to be true confessions. I don't love exercise. I am a physical therapist who hates exercise and thinks that chocolate is food. But I love to move. And that's why things like Pilates really speaks to me, and dance, and yoga never did appeal to me either. I don't know why. There was something about it. It just never really worked for me. But I do like to move. It's just, I've never done weights. Well, that's not true. I've done just light free weights, like at home and in my office, but I never did like weight machines and stuff like that. But we all find our way to what makes us happy and what works for us. And so I'm really thrilled that you've been doing some of the things you've been doing, and your interest in Pilates and stuff. It's really fun.
Yes, and I like what you said. It's true. I mean, I didn't really like an exercise, but I do like to move, and so
Mhm.
that puts it in a different perspective. That is yeah. I want to, and I keep thinking that for me, it's like I want to do something because I want to go there. Like I want to have a goal, and we
Mhm.
were talking about that you did pole dancing. And so
Yes.
I thought, okay, well, I would like to try that. And this is another friend who said, let's go and see this studio. And I was doing it, but I was putting funny faces. And so the teacher was like, Daniela, supposed to be sexy. I'm like, but it hurts. And
Yeah,
so I couldn't put,
it's
it
really
hurts,
hard.
right? It's not easy.
It's hard to look
But
sexy
you're
when you're
better
in
than me.
pain.
Yeah, you're better than me. You go upside down on the pole, right?
I do, but it took a long time. A lot of the younger women, especially, there, and some of them are fearless, and not cautious. I'm very cautious because it could be pretty dangerous. And I get, even at this point, I get really nervous when I see some of the women who are like, oh, I'll just try it and figure it out once I'm upside down. You have to think about it. There's just you, this little skinny pole, metal pole, which is very slippy, slidey. You're going upside down, your head is toward the floor, and it's a hard, hard floor. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong. So I'm very, very careful. So it took me a long time before I could go upside down because I wanted to make darn sure I knew what I was doing. And as far as like making the faces and stuff, I'm lucky because I had all those years of ballet and being in pain in ballet class, trying to do like point work.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn to look serene and happy, even though you just really want to scream. But yeah, it's okay if you make faces, you get used to it.
So this is a practice that you have to, you're in pain, but you're still smiling.
Oh, absolutely. It's like everything else. So you're actually training, your appearance. You have to pretend like, how would you be doing this if you were on a stage? So in your imagination, even though you're doing these things that are absolutely gut-wrenchingly difficult, you have to look serenely happy because you always imagine that there's an audience in front of you watching you. So yeah, it's a practice like everything else.
So you use that in life too, when somebody's
Oh,
really annoying you.
yes. Yes, I do. And that's part of the ninja train too. But yeah, because there are times when it's like my face is an open book and it's pretty obvious. If you can't tell what I'm thinking, then you're just really not looking. So there are a lot of times where I just have to hide that and just put on a happy face or a neutral face. So yeah, it's a skill like everything else.
I know, I know. When I do that sometimes, it's funny because I do it and then like it lasts me whatever, as long as I need to. And then when I turn around, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm so fake.
Oh, but it's a really good skill to have because it can protect you
Yes.
at some level. But
Yeah. I don't always master it, but I try.
well, are you going to go back to the poll and try it again or not?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe in a different studio, maybe in a different place. I will,
Mhm.
I never say never. I
Yeah,
really like to try. But yes, now I think I'm going to try to learn a lot about Pilates. So let's see how that's going to happen.
that is going to give you a very strong base and a foundation for whatever you do going forward. If it, whatever you do going forward, that Pilates is going to give you the strength and flexibility to keep yourself not only strong,
Mhm.
but, injury free and flexible. So great plan.
Wonderful.
Okay, so now how in the world did you come up with the idea that you needed to do a podcast? Because podcasting is quite an endeavor.
Well, I had a job, and this is one of the intros on my podcast. I had a job with a nonprofit, Big Brothers of Greater
Hmm.
Vancouver,
Mhm.
and I was the company liaison and auction coordinator. So I was, sorry, I was bringing, I was, collecting people to come and bowl for Big Brothers. It was like a big bowling event. There was like 96
Mhm.
people, no, sorry, 96 days events, 96 events
Wow.
in 6 weeks, and we had 4 bowling alleys in the whole lower mainland. And then we had like 3,000 companies coming and participate, so I had to reach out and convince them to come. And that, as I calling them, I get to meet them, and it was you talk to the people, and it's amazing to learn about their stories. And then I have to go and do, after the other 6 months of the year, we had a golf tournament, and we had like about an auction, a live auction and a silent auction, about 100 items. And I had to collect all those items and, research, get the items, and display the whole thing. So it was just, I love to do that. It was amazing. I consider myself an super artistic, and I'm incredible at doing auctions. I know how to set it up, how is the best thing to do it. I thought I could be a professional auctioneer, but I don't think, that auctioneer as a setting it up, but I don't think that's such a role. But I was enjoying it so much. And then I was enjoying it, researching and meeting people, going and collect the items. The problem that I have is that if you donated something, then I felt obligated to buy something from you on my own packet. So I would come home with stuff, and because they were beautiful, and I felt bad. And, I feel like I cannot just take, I have to give. And so that was kind of interesting. But I had conversations, coffee, and all these kind of things with people. And I loved it. It was just amazing. It was an amazing job. I did it for 7 years, but it was time to change. And then I changed different jobs, but I never found a job that had that feeling of connecting. I knew about the whole city because everybody was from everywhere. And so one day I was listening to a podcast from somebody that my husband knows, and it was just a conversation like you and I thought, oh my God, this is so interesting. What if I could do that? And I started thinking about it, and I share it with my kids and my husband, and they said, sure. But I couldn't understand the concept. How can you put voice out there? I didn't know that. And so I saw some videos. My son explained it to me, and then, but I left it because I was thinking, maybe it's too complicated. And then one day I said, okay, no, I'm going to sit and I'm going to do it. And I did it, and it was like, oh, so easy. It's so easy. And so I started to, I loved it, and I started to do it. And the rest is history. I started to read. I listened to a lot of listen to a lot of YouTube videos, and learning about other people's how to do it, got the equipment, and then started to collect stories. I thought I was going to collect stories from my friends because I have fascinating friends with fascinating stories. And I don't know what happened to those friends, but I didn't see them anymore. So I felt like they felt maybe that I was selling Tupperwares, and so they kind of disappeared, many of them. And so I never reach out anymore. But then now I have so many stories. And then, and the name, you want to ask perhaps how the name came up. I don't know. Immediately it came. It was just like a thing, because everyone has a story. It has to be because everyone has a story. And then the color, it was like, it has to be that salmon color. It has to be that color. And it was just interesting how it has to be, it was not an option. So that's how it happens.
Well, that's a fascinating story in itself. And the fact that you said it was so easy just blows me away. I almost fell off of my chair because I know what I went through when I first started podcasting. And it was like, this isn't easy at all. It was just really frustrating and very difficult. But I wasn't as meticulous as you watching YouTube videos and stuff. Maybe that would have helped. I don't know. And the other thing is just listening to you talk about the golf tournament and setting up the auction and all this stuff, all I could think of was how much work that is. So the level of organization and coordination that you had to do with multiple different people and organizations to get this thing going. No wonder why you're so successful at podcasting. Apparently you're very good at organizing.
Yes, I am very organized. That's true. And it was a lot of work. That's true. It's true as well. A lot of organizing and, connecting, because you get donations and you put it together. And we also brought donations to other events. And there were events that brought like several charities together. And I remember, I'm a bit critical because I'm so organized. And so I would do amazing baskets, and I would wrap it, even if I give you a glass with some candies, it will look beautiful, like $100, even it costs only $3. So I have this thing that I like to, presentation is to me very important. And so I would do really nice baskets and really nice cool things. And yeah, I enjoy it because it was my creativity part. I'm not an artist per se, but I think I love to be creative in one way or another.
Mhm.
So, you're creative in so many ways. For example,
Mhm.
for me, it's like getting dressed to work. It's not that I have to buy a lot of clothes, but if I combine this with this instead of just having like a set thing, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, look, this match. When I feel, oh, I had a, I had a creativity moment, even if it's a silly thing. But I think
Mhm.
that's just very important to me. Important to have creativity.
Wow, that's amazing. The other thing, well, I hope I'm going to remember this. So, the other thing I wanted to say was with some of those people that you met along the way, you were already more or less doing a podcast without recording because
Mhm.
of all of the different people that you were meeting and listening to their stories along the way before you ever got in front of the microphone.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I met, we had here the oldest strip club in Vancouver, where, and it calls the Penthouse. And I met through Big Brothers, the the cousin of the owner. And so she had so much story to tell, and she was the second grade teacher of this guy who loved her so much and always have her with her, and he opened a boxing place. So meeting those people, it was just fascinating to learn all these stories. It was
Mhm.
just incredible. It's true. And I always thought that I am a person who likes to talk, because I
Mhm.
always talk. But the truth is that I am a person who likes to listen. So in social gathers, I like to listen more. And then I look shy. And because I didn't talk much, I always thought people don't want to be with me, or I'm too shy, or I rather don't go out. But I always look forward to dinner parties, especially dinner parties where I know that we can have conversations. And always get frustrated when it hasn't gone deep enough. Like I want to
Ah.
have a subject, whatever they are. I don't know about all the subjects, but whenever somebody brings something, I loved when there is a deep conversation. And so I always have been a good listener, but somehow I thought that I don't know how to listen. I just talk and talk.
Mhm.
And so now I'm learning that it's the other way around. And
Mhm.
I don't know, appreciating that more instead of being critical about when I'm silenced.
Mhm. Well, through silence, you sure do learn a lot, don't you? A lot
Hmm.
about people and a lot about human nature.
Yes, and I'm also fascinated about people's movements and how they do things and how they act, right? And
Mhm.
and so I took a few courses. I can't remember the name now of what it is exactly, but when you move your hands, or how
Body
you
language.
body, yeah, exactly. So I was always fascinated about body language, and I
Mhm.
took a couple of courses, and so I thought I was a detective, something like that. but uh, but I still, like I remember once, and this is a silly story, but I was in a presentation, nonprofit, and they were talking about a story of these people that we have helped. And then this guy is saying, and so, tell a story, everything bad that happens to Susie. And then Susie's doing blah blah blah, and this is what happens to Susie. And then he says, and Susie now, and then he touched the back of his neck. And I read, well, what I was learning, that when you talk the back of your neck or your ears, it means like you're not sure what you're saying that is true. And then when he did that, I'm like, oh my God, Susie is not well. This is a story that is not, like Susie did all this bad happens to her, but she's not have gotten into like the happy ending that he's sharing. And so that was funny, because I was like, oh my God, now I'm a detective. I know he didn't tell the truth.
That is actually very empowering, and that's a great story. I'm so glad you shared that because you can learn a lot about people by watching their body language
Mm.
and their eye contact, their facial expressions. And we do that a lot in my martial arts training. We
Oh,
learn just through working with other people. And boy, it tells you a lot.
oh, interesting.
It's very interesting. So I think that's fantastic you picked up on that. So yeah, that's really pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like that. It's easy when you see it, when you go in a meeting, how people are reacting and stuff. It's a bit exhausting at times, because I don't know, maybe I'm thinking I have all the answers and I have figured everybody out. It's not necessarily true, but Sometimes I think I have
Uh,
that power, even that I don't know. But you know what? This is okay. I have another story I had to share. So we were in Mexico. This is in March, and there's this guy. He's at the close in the water. Like just where the wave are, just right there on the floor, like a little kid. The wave come and he's playing and he's lying down and all the waves hitting him, so he's getting sun everywhere, right? And I'm staring at this guy and I'm thinking, wow, he is like a child. He's playing like a child in the water. He must have a great sense of humor. He must be funny. He must be like a child. He hasn't grown up.
mhm.
And that was my thought, and it went away. And so as I'm walking at the beach, I see his wife coming and him behind. And I said, wow, he is a really, he really enjoys the beach. And then she's like, yeah, he does. And then I describe him according to what I just told you. And the husband and the wife said, wow, how do you know that? It's exactly what you said. And then I thought, oh, I'm a witch. I can't tell. It
Well,
was just funny.
I can't speak to whether or not you're a witch, but I would say that you are very aware, self-awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a really incredibly good skill to have, a life skill. Again, as a ninja, I could tell you that because that'll keep you safe in a lot of situations. So keep practicing that because that, again, when you walk into a room and something doesn't feel right, you'll just get that signal. It's like, maybe I don't belong here and it's time to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
little things like that.
Yes, no, it is interesting. I do have that. I feel like I have that kind of power sometimes, and it's interesting. I don't know if you say it's scary, but like you cannot. If I tell my husband, then he's like, okay, you're exaggerating,
Mhm.
judgmental or whatever, right? But sometimes sometimes I have to say I'm not wrong. The
Yeah.
same with hiring people, like that's something that I was always very proud of. I know very good how to create teams. I
Mhm.
know how to hire the right people and do an amazing team because it's not about the skills, it's about the personality, and I somehow can read that. Not I don't know why.
Well, I have another word for it or another name for it instead of, you're crazy or exaggerating. You're intuitive.
Intuitive. Good.
Yes, that's what you are. And now I want to ask you, there's another thing I just wanted to make a comment about, because as we were talking, about how you had all these wonderful friends who had fascinating stories and stuff. And then all of a sudden you start this podcast and then they all kind of disappear. Nobody, wanted to be on the show. It's really interesting because that opened up the opportunity to meet all of these other strangers. And isn't
Mhm.
it so much more fascinating to talk to people that you've never met before?
Yes, yes, and the stories, the story had opened my heart to be more compassion, to understand people even more. When
Mhm.
somebody comes and tells me something, like people that are with me every day, and then they said, "Oh, this happens to me," and blah blah, and I somehow now, because I heard about the story of my son, for example, had a story that he works at the pool as a lifeguard, and so he said,
Mhm.
"Oh, there was this kid that was autistic, and he was hitting other kids, and I talked to the mom, and the mom wasn't very receptive." And then I was like, how hard it is to be a caregiver. And I wouldn't know that if it wasn't because
Mhm.
two people have come to the podcast and tell me about how difficult it is to be a caregiver, and they had taught me that. I was a caregiver, I guess, with my dad, who was always ill with kidneys. My mom was, but my mom didn't talk about it, right? So I don't know. And
Mhm.
hearing this, and I was able to, do you know how difficult it is? Maybe the mom is already, two now, that she can't hear any more negativity,
Mhm.
so I think that for me is like going to university every time I listen to a stories of people,
Mhm.
because it's like I'm learning more, I'm more open, more compassion. It's amazing.
Mhm.
It's a very big gift that I have now.
Mhm. Yeah, I know it's amazing how much I learn from my guests and how much more, you know, uh, I mean, it's mind boggling. I hear stories that are just so incredible and so amazing that, it's like, wow, that is so courageous of you, or that's so phenomenal that you did this. And typically I'll hear the response, oh, it didn't seem that big of a deal. I just did it. But
Mhm.
it's really funny. It's amazing to hear people's stories and to walk a mile in their shoes for a little while and hear what they've gone through.
I had two. well, I had an episode that I did with 16, 20 years old.
Mhm.
And that's why one of my oldest son was 20 at the time. And so I thought, well, I have all these smart people around me that are 20 years old. I want to do one episode and ask them 6 different questions.
Mhm.
And I was blown away by their answers and realizing that, when we were that age, my parents and my grandparents were like, oh, you're too young, you don't know anything. And
Yeah.
here we did know. And we have to honor that these young people have so much to bring. It's not just about, oh, you're young, you don't have to, because I spend every time saying, oh, I'm older than I am, so that people can consider me for different things, right? And I don't think that's necessary. And then I had 2 people that were 17 that I got into my podcast, and they were like, oh, I'm so grateful that you took me, because not many people want to have a 17-year-old. And they had a story of themselves. And I thought, what kind of story could they have? They're only 17, but they have a story because life has been for them in the way they have been. And I thought it is interesting that we need to also honor that. It's not just because you are 60 or 70 that is when you have stories to share.
Right.
You can also be 17, 5. I don't know, anybody can share a story, right? So
I actually had a young lady who was 13 on my show,
oh,
and it
yes,
was
yes,
her.
that's true. Yeah.
And I was a little nervous because 13, I mean, this is a minor, but it was her father who had contacted me, to have her on my show and stuff. So he was kind of like working as her agent, but that was interesting. She wasn't, she was very interesting. She had already written a book and she started her own business and she was 13.
Wow.
I
See,
know.
that's just, I mean, it's an anomaly. It doesn't happen all the time,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that all 13s are just kids. They're kids, and we should embrace that they have the creativity and the youth, and they don't have to worry too much about things, but they
Yeah.
have a lot to bring. And that's why I always encourage parents to, that their kids are not here to learn from them, but it's the other way
Right.
around too.
Right. And I love the way you said their creativity, because I think when we are kids, when we're younger, we have so much creativity, so much imagination,
Mhm.
and we don't really understand failure yet, so we're not afraid to fail. So it's just like, yeah, I've got this idea. I want to do this. I mean, how many kids do you see even like on the side in their neighborhoods with their little lemonade stands and stuff? I never buy the lemonade, but I always stop and give them a couple of dollars for their, ingenuity. So it's like, I support your business, and, you're going to be a fantastic entrepreneur someday. You're starting right now, and, here's $5, and, it's just really fun. I love doing that.
Wonderful. Yes, I think you told me about that guest of yours that was 13.
Yeah. Yeah. She's an amazing kid. So where can people find your podcast? Now you have been doing this for over a year, almost a year and a half. Is that true? How long have you been
I think two
podcasting?
years, 2 years, close to 2 years now.
So you're
And
on episode like 60
six,
some or
62.
Mhm.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And you can find me anywhere, like, wherever you choose, wherever you listen to your podcast, because there are like 15 different platforms that you can find people. I mean, I like to use
Mhm.
Google Podcasts, because I don't know, I like to use Google Podcasts, Spotify for music. I just like to be organized that way. But otherwise things get lost. But everywhere, yes, a lot of people, mostly people use it through Apple,
Mhm.
and those who are not those who are not subscribed to anything, then they can listen to through the Buzzsprout, which is my host.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so that's the way they can hear it. And I post 3 episodes per month,
Mhm.
unless
Mhm.
it's summer, then computer. So because I do take a lot of time editing, and I
Mhm.
know that some people say that you shouldn't, but I like to make sure that my guests sound all quite very smart, and I don't like to repeat things. So I
Mhm.
do polish and edit a lot. So that takes me a bit of time, but
Mhm.
and then in 3 episodes a month is plenty. I have also a job, so I don't.
Yes. Yes.
And so I have to manage my time. 3 is good.
Podcasting does take an awful lot of time.
Mhm.
So, Daniela, what little final pearls of wisdom or whatever would you like to leave with the audience before we sign off?
Well, I'm not very much into giving advice to people, but I do
Okay.
feel that if the listening to stories have opened my mind and to be compassionate and to be, accepting, I think that if we all, if we all listen, we also can have that happening to us. And also sharing, just because you think, like me, for example, I thought, oh, what do I have to share? My story is just my story. But everybody has a story, right? And you never know when you can connect and relate. And if you take one nugget of something, you can have learned that I don't know, that the pace in Vancouver is slower. Something, one nugget. I remember
Mhm.
learning that once. If you learn one nugget out of something, you have accomplished what you were looking for, or what is supposed to be. Just learning one thing. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I just love talking to you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Me too. I really enjoyed it. And thank you for having me.
And everybody, thank you so much for listening. And do check out Daniela's podcast. The link is in the show notes. It is because everyone has a story. And remember to share yours and keep an open mind and listen to other people's stories, because everyone really does have a story and we can learn from each other and hopefully make this world a better, happier, lighter place. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.
Thank you.